For today's video, we will be talking about the plate boundaries. Before we proceed with the actual presentation of the lesson, let me just give you a quick overview of what's going to happen along with the discussion. Alright, so there you have the overview of the objectives. So after this video, you are expected to achieve the following. The first one is to identify the types of plate boundaries, and the second one is to identify the types of plate boundaries associated with the major lithospheric plates. Alright, there you go. So next, we have the featured topics. So for today, we will be actually dealing with two related topics. Okay, so there you have the featured topics, and also we will be having several fun activities that we will surely enjoy answering as we proceed later on with the discussion. So now for the jump start, I'm going to show you a video with stamped questions. So just to give you an idea on what will be the flow of our discussion. So are you ready? Alright, great, so let's watch this.
Welcome to Moo Math and Science and Plate Boundaries. Some of the most dramatic changes in the Earth's crust, like mountain ranges, new islands, or earthquakes, occur along plate boundaries.
First question, where do mountain ranges, new islands, and earthquakes usually form? What do you think so? Along the edges of the plate boundaries? Let's see. Great, you're correct.
There are three types of plate boundaries: divergent boundaries, convergent boundaries, and transform boundaries.
For the second question, what are the different types of the plate boundaries? Let's see. There you have the convergent, transform, divergent boundary. Is that correct? Very good, that's correct.
Convergent boundaries occur when two plates collide. There are three major types. First is continental to continental. This occurs when two plates of continental crust collide. They buckle and thicken, and this causes mountains to form.
Question number 3. When two continental crusts collide, what do you think is formed? What do you think? Mountains? Is that so? You're absolutely right.
Next, you have continental to ocean collisions. When a plate of ocean crust collides with a plate of continental crust, the ocean crust is more thick and subducts or goes underneath the continental crust. The magma from the melted oceanic crust rises to the surface, and this results in volcanoes along the boundary.
Next question. What geological feature can be formed due to continental to oceanic collision? Would that be volcanoes or mountains? Volcanoes? We'll see. Cool.
Ocean to ocean collisions occur when two plates of oceanic crust collide. The older, more dense plate subducts under the younger plate, and as a result...
Alright, next. Oceanic to oceanic convergence happens when a heavier and older oceanic plate subducts underneath the lighter and younger oceanic plate. Is that true or false? It's true. You're amazing.
Result, the crust melts and creates an island arc. Next, you have divergent boundaries. This is when two plates move away from each other. The separation allows the...
Another question. Which of the following describes a divergent boundary? Plates that collide to one another or plates that move apart? What do you think so? You got it correctly. Plates that move apart.
Asthenosphere to rise towards the surface and partially melt. This melting creates magma, which erupts as lava, and then the lava cools and hardens to create new rock and ocean floor or new continental crust. As the crust and upper part of the asthenosphere cool and become rigid, they form new lithosphere, like mid-ocean ridges. Most of these divergent boundaries are located on the ocean floor.
Alright, let's have another one. Most of the divergent boundaries form on the ocean floor. Would that be true or false? Right, it's true. You are truly amazing.
However, rift valleys may also form where the continents are separated by plate movement. And finally, transform boundaries occur where two plates move past each other horizontally.
Let's have another one. How do transform fault boundaries form? When two plates collide or when two plates slide past one another? You're absolutely right.
When the plates move next to each other, they do not go along smoothly. Instead, they scrape at each other in a series of sudden slippages of crustal rock, and these can be felt as earthquakes. Unlike the other types of boundaries, transform boundaries generally do not produce magma. The San Andreas Fault in California is a major
Alright, what geological feature phenomena happens when plates slide past one another? Would that be earthquake or volcanoes? Earthquakes, fantastic.
transform boundary. So there we go, 3 types of plate boundaries: convergent, divergent, and transform. Thanks for watching, and Moo Math uploads a new math and science video every day. Please subscribe and share.
Alright, now let's just try to answer these 5 easy questions to see if you have understood what was discussed in the video. I am so impressed. You really did a good job back there. Now, I just have a little question for you guys. Do you have any idea about the lithospheric plates or the lithosphere? Absolutely, of course you do. Well, actually, the lithosphere is the most rigid and solid outermost part of the earth, including the upper crust and the mantle. So if you could just remember the very basic layers of the earth, we have the crust, we have the mantle, and the core. So lithosphere is just somewhere between the upper crust and the mantle. Alright? Now, each lithospheric plate is composed of a layer of an oceanic crust or a continental crust. So take note of that. We have 2 types of crust. First one is the continental crust, and then we also have the oceanic crust. Are we good with that? That's great. Now, please do take down notes on anything that you have already known about the lithospheric plates, because we might use that later on as we proceed with our lesson for today. You know what? I'm quite confident that you guys are now ready for our fun activities. And I know you are so excited as much as I do, right? So let's get started. Alright, so for this first activity, you are tasked to find the 7 major lithospheric plates, which I know you are already familiar with from your previous discussion. Now, for each correct plate that you find, there will be corresponding letters. Now, once you have gathered all of these letters, you have to arrange it to form a certain word. So are you ready? Let's do this. Alright, so there's the map. So we are going to find the 7 major lithospheric plates. So if you see them, can you tell me what those are? Pacific plate, let's see. Alright, that's one of the major lithospheric plates. What else? You think North American plate? Okay, let's see if that's one of the major lithospheric plates. You're right. What about South American plate? Does it belong to the seven major lithospheric plates? Absolutely. What else? African plate? Let's see. Wow, you're doing a good job. Let's have the next one. Okay, let's try Eurasian plate. Good job! It's one of the seven major lithospheric plates. Now, what else? Antarctic plate. Let's see. You're right. What else? Australian plate. Let's see if that belongs to the seven major lithospheric plates. Great! Now I guess you have gathered all of the major plates. Let's see. You have the Pacific plate, you have the North American plate, the South American plate, African, Eurasian, Antarctic, and Australian plate. So now, what do you think is the missing word? You're truly amazing. That is plate boundaries. Do you know anything about plate boundaries? Well, plate boundaries are actually found at the edges of the lithospheric plates, and they are categorized into three types, which you are about to find out on your next activity. Yes, you're going to have another fun activity, but this time you are going to decode the following words. And how are you going to do that? You just have to say the word out loud, and then from its sound you are going to decode the correct actual term or actual word. So, are we clear with that? Okay, let's do this. Okay, so let's read the first word all together out loud. Divergent. Divergent. What do you think that word is? Divergent, that's right. Now, next, we have co-on-veer-urgent. Co-on-veer-urgent. What do you think the word is? Convergent, that's correct. Now, the third one, we have Terence form. Terence form. What do you think is the word that we can form from that? Terence form. Great, that is transform. You're doing good. Alright, so the three words that you were able to decode on our previous activity were actually the three types of plate boundaries. So we have the convergent boundary, divergent boundary, and transform fault boundaries. So let us take a look at them one by one. When we say convergent boundary, these are the boundaries where plates collide or plates that move towards one another. Next, we have the divergent boundary. So unlike the convergent boundary, in divergent boundary, plates are actually moving apart. From the word diverge, it is diverging, moving away from one another. And then we have the next one, which is the transform fault boundary, where plates are actually sliding past one another. Now let's have a deeper discussion with the three types of plate boundaries. So first one, we have the convergent boundary. So in convergent boundary, once again, these are the plates that move towards one another, as you can see on the illustration. So we actually have three types of collision under convergent boundary, as you have watched earlier in the video. So we have the continental-continental collision, we have the continental-oceanic collision, and also the oceanic-oceanic collision. So question, what do you think will be formed if two continental plates collide? Yes, very good. Mountain ranges could be formed. Alright, let's move on to the next one, which is the divergent boundary. So from the word diverge, these are the plates that move apart from each other, as you can see on the illustration there. So what do you think will be formed if the continental plates diverge? Yes, you're right. Rift valleys could be formed, whereas on the ocean floor, divergent boundary could form mid-ocean ridges. Alright, now let's move on with the last one, which is the transform fault boundary. So in this kind of boundary, unlike the first two, the divergent and convergent, it actually does not create physical geological feature. Instead, it creates massive earthquakes because the movement of or the plates of the transform fault boundary are actually gliding or sliding past one another. So could you give me or do you know any example of transform fault boundary? Very good. That is actually one of the most prominent examples of the transform fault boundary, the San Andreas Fault. San Andreas Fault extends actually 1,200 kilometers through California, and it could release high amount of energy that could create massive and truly destructive earthquakes. So now we have discussed the three types of plate boundaries. I guess you are all ready for another activity. On this activity, you are going to match the plate boundaries to their correct description and correct illustration. So as you can see there, we have the types of plate boundaries, and then on the other side we have their description, and then on the other side we have their illustrations. So let's have the convergent boundary first. So which among the description would fit to convergent boundary? You got it right. It's plate boundaries that collide to each other. Okay, next we have divergent boundary. There you go. These are the boundaries that move apart. So for the last one, transform fault boundary. Great, so these are the boundaries that slide past one another. Now let's move forward to their correct or corresponding illustrations. So for the convergent boundary, let's see. Amazing, that's the correct illustration for the convergent boundary. How about for divergent? That's right. And for the last one, transform fault boundary. Very good. Now you were able to identify the three types of plate boundaries. Now let's move on to our next topic. So for this topic, we are going to study the map and then familiarize ourselves with the types of plate boundaries associated with the major lithospheric plates. So as you can see on the map, I have here the legends for the divergent boundary, which is white, convergent boundary, which is red, and then yellow for the transform fault boundary. So let's have the major lithospheric plates that are associated with the divergent boundary first. Alright, so can you give me an example of plates associated with a divergent boundary based on the map? Very good, that's one, the Pacific plate, which is moving apart from the Nazca plate. What else? Very good, the South American plate, which is moving away from the African plate. Any other? Very good, the African plate and the Australian plate is actually associated or are actually associated with the divergent boundary. What else? There you go, Australian plate and Antarctic plate are also associated with a divergent boundary. Alright, so there you go, you were able to familiarize yourselves with plate boundaries and their associated major lithospheric plates. So let's have the next one. So now let's have the plates associated with the convergent boundary. So these are the plates with the red lines. Okay, so could you give me plates associated with the convergent boundaries? Very good, that's one, the Nazca plate, which is actually colliding with the South American plate. What else? Very good, there we have the Philippine plate moving towards the Australian plate. Any other? There you go, the Eurasian plate, which is moving towards the Pacific plate. There you go. Now let's move on with the transform fault boundary. So the plates associated with the transform fault boundary are those with yellow lines. Can you give me an example? That's a good one. The Scotia plate, which is sliding past the Antarctic plate. What else? There you go, the Indian plate and the Arabian plate, which are associated with the transform fault boundary. All right, there you go. So you were able to identify the major lithospheric plates and then the types of plate boundaries associated with them. Okay, so I think you are all set for the next fun activity, right? Remember when I told you to familiarize yourselves on the map and the major lithospheric plates? This is the time that you're going to need that because you're going to test your memorization skills. Okay, so for this activity, you are going to identify the major lithospheric plates and then put them on their right places on the map. That's exciting, isn't it? All right, let's start. So the first one, we have the North American plate. Where are we going to put the North American plate on the map? There you go. How about the Pacific plate? That's impressive. How about the South American plate? It's amazing. African plate? Cool. Next we have the Antarctic plate. That's so easy, isn't it? Next we have Australian plate. That's truly impressive. And the last one we have Eurasian plate. Where are you going to put that? Very good. So you have completed the major lithospheric plates and then put them on their right places. Okay, now it's time for the next activity. So for this activity, you see on the map the combinations of the lithospheric plates, and now you're going to identify the type of plate boundaries associated with them. So there you go, let's have the first one. We have the Pacific plate and the North American plate. So which among the three types of boundary is associated with the Pacific plate and the North American plate? There you go, that is the divergent boundary. Now what about the North American plate and the Eurasian plate? Great, they are also associated with the divergent boundary. What about Eurasian plate and the Pacific plate? Is it going to be convergent, divergent, or transform? Very good, it's convergent boundary. What about South American plate and the African plate? There you go, it is also associated with the divergent boundary. And the last one, we have the Australian plate and the Antarctic plate, which are associated with what type of boundary? It's divergent boundary. Very good. I think you're asking for more. I'll give you one more activity. So since you want more, we are going to strengthen your skills in identifying the plate boundaries associated with the major lithospheric plates. So you see, we are going to determine what type of plate boundary is associated with the given major lithospheric plates. So let's have the first one. We have the Australian plate and the Eurasian plate, which are actually associated to which type of plate boundary? You're right, that is associated with the convergent boundary. What about the African plate and the Antarctic plate? Fantastic, that is under divergent boundary. What about the Australian plate and the Antarctic plate? There you go, once again, divergent boundary. And then we have African plate and the South American plate. As you say, they are associated with divergent boundary as well. And the North American plate and Eurasian plate. They are also associated with the divergent boundary. That's nice. And then we have the last one, which is the North American plate and the American plate. I know you know this. Absolutely, that is also under divergent boundary. So I think we're all set. I know you've learned a lot. So see you guys on our next video lesson. Bye bye.